The Washington Post is imploding, with subscribers and staff up in arms over the paper's decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. Has the Post lost its soul? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. We are finally in the home stretch of the 2024 presidential election. And you know what that means? Even more drama. And now it's about who's supporting who, because the world totally needs to know your political opinions. So, which presidential candidate do you endorse, Jiffy Lube? Your silence is damning! That is, unfortunately, the attitude a lot of people seem to have these days. Companies and even regular Joes are expected to make their political opinions known, which seems kind of strange. What's not strange is the New York Times answering that call by endorsing Kamala Harris for U.S. president. However, in a surprising move, the Washington Post said it wouldn't endorse a presidential candidate for the first time in 36 years. This is despite the fact the Washington Post has endorsed many presidential candidates, including Trump's opponents. It had even written a draft preparing to endorse Harris. That is, until Washington Post owner and evil tech billionaire Jeff Bezos reportedly struck it down. This is the most controversial editorial decision since the Daily Bugle decided not to endorse a candidate in favor of printing more pictures of Spider-Man. Washington Post publisher and CEO William Lewis explained the decision, saying, "We are returning to our roots of not endorsing presidential candidates in order to remain independent." Sounds rather reasonable for a newspaper with journalistic integrity, but depending on how you look at this, you could either see a prestigious newspaper rejecting the hyper-partisanship of today and returning to its roots of objectivity, or you might see this as the death of the Washington Post's independence, enslaved to the whims of its corrupt billionaire owner who doesn't want to endorse Kamala Harris because he doesn't want to challenge Donald Trump, who is Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini all rolled into one. So, how did the readers of the Washington Post take it? Will democracy die in darkness? Well, the backlash from their readers was, "Stop, the press is strong." Angry readers and sources flooded the email inboxes of numerous staffers with complaints. In letters to the editor, many felt disappointment, disgust, and despair, and wished the Post's decision would be remembered with shame, which isn't much of a burn since it'd be harder to find things that won't be remembered with shame when it comes to this election. It got so bad that only 3 days later, over 200,000 subscribers, or 8% of the paper's paid subscribers, canceled their subscriptions. But it wasn't just the readers who were mad. 3 of the Post's 10-member editorial board stepped down, with one outright resigning from the Post. And 21 Washington Post columnists signed a statement condemning Bezos' decision, calling the newspaper's refusal to endorse a presidential candidate a mistake. But on the bright side, at least Bezos' employees aren't bottling up their emotions, though his Amazon employees might still have to bottle up their pee. But this does give us a really good insight into the readership and staff at the Washington Post. They clearly believe Trump is a uniquely significant threat to democracy, who could take us back to more turbulent times. So naturally, this means their employer is betraying them by remaining neutral. They want to fight against this narcissistic billionaire who's trying to take over the world. And Donald Trump, too. Even former Post executive editor Marty Baron decided to chime in, calling the decision cowardice, with democracy as its casualty. And the Post's own columnists even wrote op-eds criticizing their own newspaper. Even the humor columnist endorsed Harris. That's one step above Harris receiving an endorsement from Marmaduke. Bezos is being accused of consenting to a fascist's whims and trying to curry favor with Trump. Which is silly. I mean, what do billionaires who went through ugly divorces and wound up with younger, attractive women have in common? It certainly doesn't help that the same day as the announcement, Trump met with leaders from Bezos-owned Blue Origin.
Look, the fact is that Bezos has other commercial interests, as we know. He obviously founded Amazon, has a huge, big stake in Amazon. He has a space company called Blue Origin. Trump has threatened to pursue his political enemies, and he rewards his friends and he punishes his perceived political enemies. And I think there's no other explanation for what's happening right now.
So they're saying Bezos is playing all sides. He's taking his shot with Trump, though he probably shouldn't word it like that around the Secret Service. Who am I kidding? They wouldn't do anything. Anyway, Bezos got so much criticism, he decided to write his own op-ed. He claims the mainstream media has lost the public's trust and that presidential endorsements won't make much of a difference in changing people's opinions. And he has a point. Trust in mainstream media really is unsurprisingly low. Bezos makes the point that people trust Congress more than the media. That's pretty bad. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that a former executive editor for the Washington Post released a report showing that lots of journalists want to move beyond objectivity. Yes, there are lots of journalists now seriously arguing that objectivity is bad. I did a whole episode on that. I'll put a link below. So these Washington Post journalists believe they know what's best for you. They call themselves a beacon that must inform and guide voters through endorsement. Comparing Trump events to Nazi rallies isn't enough. Look, if you accuse people of being Nazis too often, when real Nazis show up, no one will believe you. Just like the classic story, The Boy Who Cried Wolfenstein. To the Washington Post staff, they can't even fathom the idea of not taking an official stance against Trump. Because to them, the only choice is to explicitly endorse his opponent, Harris. They believe if you don't hear people say the words, "I endorse Kamala Harris," then you have to assume that they're all just cowards who won't stand up to fascism. Yeah, cowards. Unless they do what everyone else is doing and follow along due to peer pressure, like heroes. The problem is that media on both the left and right aren't objective. Depending on what you read, you either think Trump is Hitler or Harris is a communist, and if they win, they will destroy America. It's no wonder election anxiety is eating away at people's mental health. No doubt the Washington Post is aware of this, but of course, they're not part of the problem. It's gotten to the point where people from both sides are seriously wondering if the candidates they hate will imprison or kill their enemies. Let's all take a deep breath from all the escalatory rhetoric and remember that while elections are important, our lives don't need to revolve around them. And if you're thinking our lives do revolve around the decisions made by those in charge, and not even thinking about it for even an instant is a sign of privilege, you're exactly who needs to calm down. If you really care about your elections and how they'll impact your lives, then stop just looking at the national elections and look at how you can make an impact in your local communities. Remember, there are also local elections, because believe it or not, Trump and Harris don't care or have the time to dictate if the trash should continue being collected on Tuesdays in your area or if it should be moved to Wednesdays. There are tons of candidates for state representatives, school boards, commissioners, judges, lots of them. People tend to overlook them, but knowing who they are and where they stand is also important for the health of American democracy. Don't let news outlets decide for you who to vote for. Except for America Uncovered, of course. You definitely must vote for the candidate we're endorsing. Ladies and gentlemen, I speak of America Uncovered's officially endorsed presidential candidate, Chris Christie. Sure, he's not on the ballot. The U.S. elections are coming in just a few days, but at least no one's claiming that he's a threat to democracy. And can you really say that about the other candidates? So, do you support Chris Christie, Jiffy Lube? Your silence is damning. And before you go, I've been trying to hide topics YouTube considers too controversial in gaming content. Check out the latest about teens, identity, and grooming in the game Life is Strange Double Exposure. Don't tell YouTube what it's about. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.